Silence, often misconstrued as an absence, is in truth a profound wellspring of intrinsic fortitude, a sanctuary most individuals never discover. The vast majority are perpetually occupied, meticulously filling the surrounding atmosphere with incessant noise and cluttering their minds with a ceaseless eddy of thoughts that circle relentlessly, much like famished hounds. They cling desperately to the superficial solace offered by constant chatter, both with others and, perhaps even more so, with themselves. Yet, an inevitable juncture arrives in a man's life when he must confront an undeniable truth. Authentic power does not proclaim itself with ostentatious displays. It does not parade itself like a wounded creature desperately soliciting attention or validation. True strength, in its most profound manifestation, stands in quietude, giving scarce consideration to either commendation or censure. It articulates itself only when the clarity and impact of its message cannot possibly be enhanced by further silence, and its unwavering focus is directed towards pursuits that very few possess the genuine courage or sustained discipline to bring to fruition. Observe the world around you and discern with what effortless ease the human intellect is perpetually diverted. Unbridled desires fragment the mind, pulling one's cognitive faculties in a myriad of disparate directions. In this era, attentiveness has become the new cognitive capital, and regrettably, it seems nearly everyone is bankrupt. They readily exchange their precious concentration for transient, inexpensive bursts of validation. They speak when true wisdom would dictate listening, engage in futile disputes when quiet observation would yield far greater insight, and become mired in excessive rumination when decisive action is urgently required. As the Stoic philosopher Epictetus aptly noted, it is not events that disturb people, but their judgments concerning them. Every superfluous utterance, every errant thought, every squandered moment, constitutes a cut against the self, a slow erosion of one's potential, a multitude of minor self-betrayals culminating in what amounts to a gradual demise. A mind consumed by matters of no genuine consequence leaves no cognitive expanse for what truly merits contemplation. A man who speaks incessantly merely to be acknowledged rarely, if ever, truly hears the whisper of his own inner wisdom. A man who tirelessly pursues every fleeting glimmer of desire inevitably extinguishes the very internal fire that could forge him into a cohesive, fully realized being. There is nothing inherently intricate about this profound truth. The ancient Stoics understood it with remarkable clarity. They viewed the mind as a wild, untamed animal that demands rigorous discipline and conscious governance. To inundate it with an excess of ideas simultaneously is to render it weak and restless. To fill it with a relentless din of constant external and internal noise is to cause it to forget the resonant rhythm of its own heartbeat, the very cadence of its inherent rationality, or logos. To permit it to run wild, unbridled and unguided, is to invite it to turn against its very master, breeding fear, propagating anxiety, and fostering illusory perceptions of control where none genuinely exist. As Marcus Aurelius, the emperor-philosopher, profoundly stated, our life is what our thoughts make it. A disciplined mind is not empty, rather, it is serene, lucid, and unburdened by extraneous static. It deliberately focuses its attention solely on what falls within its sphere of direct influence and calmly releases its grip on what lies beyond its control, this fundamental principle being the Stoic dichotomy of control. It refrains from incessantly picking at old wounds with needless, tormenting inquiries. It actively starves the futile fantasies of what could have been. Instead, it remains steadfastly rooted in the present reality of what is, and does not tremble with apprehension before the uncertainties of what might come. Strength, then, truly originates in this profound quietude. The less you allow your mind to dwell on trivialities and nonsense, the more vital room you create for the principle of discipline to flourish and breathe. The less you speak when no necessary utterance is required, the sharper and more impactful your words become when you do choose to articulate them. The more relentlessly you prune away superficial distractions, the deeper and more profoundly your focused work cuts into the fabric of reality, leaving an indelible mark. This sounds remarkably straightforward because, at its core, it genuinely is. However, simplicity should never be conflated with ease. To cultivate the habit of thinking less means to develop a vigilant awareness, to notice precisely when the mind begins to spiral into unproductive loops and to possess the inner resolve to repeatedly, gently, but firmly, pull it back until the destructive spiral finally breaks. To learn to talk less means to exercise the rigorous self-control necessary to bite the tongue, especially when the ego clamors for an opportunity to assert itself, to prove its perceived superiority. To concentrate more intensely means to unequivocally decline the ephemeral allure of shallow, fleeting pleasures and, conversely, to embrace the quiet, demanding discipline, the quiet crucible of labor that is the quiet agony of unfinished, challenging tasks that ultimately shape and forge the man of substance. The contemporary mind is, regrettably, profoundly addicted to the illusion of progress, often manifested through busy work, an endless stream of plans, and loud, opinionated pronouncements that merely convince the deluded individual that he is engaged in something genuinely significant. Yet, the authentic, transformative work unfolds when no external audience is present, in the silence of one's own space, within the unassuming shadows of daily routine, and especially in those moments when the mind, seeking escape, desires to flee, but the man, anchored by resolve, stands still and diligently executes the necessary work regardless. Desire, in its essence, is not inherently malevolent. However, unrolled desire is a virulent poison, transforming into a tyrannical master. The Stoics meticulously taught that the act of wanting is an intrinsic aspect of the human condition, but to be enslaved and governed by one's desires is the very definition of servitude. Seneca reminded us, it is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor. Therefore, think less about what is merely wanted, and far more about what is genuinely needed. Speak less about lofty dreams, and instead, work more assiduously in the obscurity of diligent effort until the dream has taken on enough tangible form to stand independently. Focus more intently on the immediate, actionable next step than on the distant, often idealized, grand prize. Anxiety, that pervasive tormentor, fundamentally feeds on two primary elements: unchecked imagination and excessive noise. The mind, left to its own devices, invents intricate problems it is utterly incapable of solving, and the tongue, unbridled, spreads these perceived difficulties like an uncontrolled wildfire. Fear multiplies exponentially in the echoing reverberations of your own unexamined words. But when the mind quiets its restless churning, when the mouth voluntarily closes, when the body returns its unwavering attention to the task immediately at hand, fear remarkably shrinks. This is because fear is, for the most part, merely a looming shadow cast by the uncertain future. A man whose entire focus is anchored firmly on what is directly within his grasp, what he can control in the present moment, simply has no cognitive room for such spectral phantoms. There is a compelling reason why the ancient philosophers placed such immense value on solitude, not because they harbored animosity towards their fellow human beings, but because they understood implicitly that in the perpetual presence of others, the powerful temptation to perform, to prove, to display, to articulate plans not yet transformed into tangible reality, is overwhelmingly strong. When one is truly alone, the social mask inevitably falls away. The man is then compelled to confront his own vulnerabilities and weaknesses directly, with no external audience to flatter him or validate his pretenses. In this unadorned state, he learns to sit patiently with his own restless mind until, through persistent effort, it finally bows to his command. A man must never fear solitude. Instead, he must fear being perpetually surrounded by such an overwhelming din that it utterly drowns out the quiet, authentic voice that reveals to him who he truly is. A man must not fear being silent. He must fear speaking so profusely and meaninglessly that his words are rendered utterly worthless. A man must not fear cultivating the ability to think less. He must fear thinking so much about absolutely nothing that he completely forgets what must be accomplished today. The vast majority of humanity never manage to break free from this relentless cycle. They age gracefully, if not wisely, perpetually discussing what they will do one day. They spin endless, intricate webs of elaborate excuses. They fill entire rooms with empty pronouncements and ultimately depart this life with nothing but the fading echo of their own voice to mark their passing. The Stoic, however, lives not in this manner. The Stoic does not allow himself to drown in the turbulent currents of his own mind. The Stoic does not squander his valuable words attempting to convince fools to comprehend his rational perspective. The Stoic does not permit his precious focus to be scattered aimlessly in 1,000 disparate directions. Instead, with unwavering resolve, he consistently draws it back, again and again, to the small, vital flame of what truly matters, what is truly within his control and aligned with virtue. Focus is not an inherent trait, it is a forged capacity, a cultivated faculty painstakingly wrought through relentless effort. It is the direct result of meticulously cutting away every element that does not belong, every distraction, every superficiality. A man who possesses true focus is a man who, in silent dedication, bleeds for what he truly desires to achieve, while the rest of the world either mocks his solitary endeavor or simply forgets his existence. And therein lies his formidable power. No one witnesses the hidden sweat, no one observes the early mornings or the late nights, the rigorous routine that would undoubtedly break a weaker man. They perceive only the magnificent culmination, the fruit of the work that is finally brought into being. If the mind persists in thinking too much, consciously train it to think less by systematically giving it less to feed upon. Ruthlessly cut out the extraneous noise, eliminate the idle gossip, cease the constant checking, scrolling, and peeking at what everyone else is doing. Allow the mind to truly starve from distractions until it learns, through sheer necessity, to consume only what genuinely nourishes its growth and purpose. If the tongue speaks too much, cultivate the art of quiet observation instead. People, in their unguarded moments, reveal their true selves when you remain silent. They will tell you exactly who they are, exposing their fears, their unbridled desires, and their inherent flaws. A quiet man learns immeasurably more than a loud man ever could, because when you choose to speak less, your carefully chosen words possess greater gravity, they land harder, they resonate with heightened impact, and they truly cost something in terms of deliberate intention. When the mind inevitably drifts, true inner strength relentlessly pulls it back to what genuinely matters. Quiet, consistent discipline builds what mere talk can never hope to construct. Desire and ego, starved of external validation and internal indulgence, naturally fade into insignificance. A Stoic acts without fanfare or ostentation, and remains remarkably calm when the world clamors for chaos. Few words, steady, purposeful work, that is more than enough. There is no need to prove anything to anyone. True strength is inherently silent and consistently leaves behind what genuinely lasts, a legacy not of noise but of substance. This is not merely a philosophical concept to be passively admired, it is a robust framework for practical living, a rigorous discipline to be embodied. Think less. Say less. Focus completely. In the final reckoning, the only questions that truly matter are these. Did the mind serve its purpose? Did the words build something meaningful? Did the work truly count? If not, then, with Stoic resolve, begin again. This is the essence of the Stoic warrior mind. Let it remain steadfast when all the world's noise has finally vanished.